My name is Nikhil, and I'm from India. And I've done about software engineering for about 15 plus years now. In the very beginning years of my career, I wasn't much into software engineering, but more into customer support. I'd done that for about a couple of years, but then I applied for Google. And even with Google, like about first 3 years, I really didn't do too much of software engineering. But then I started taking up, smaller projects, learning a few more languages on the way. And then because I had a graduate's degree in computer sciences, I wanted to pursue that. And that's when I started learning more about Google's internal technologies, about the products, about where I can contribute. And ever since then, it's mostly been, just the software industry for me. I did start off as a full stack developer, but then I slowly evolved into more of a front end engineer because I liked working on things which were like more client and customer centric and customer focused. So I worked as a front end engineer for about 4 plus years, almost about 5 years. But very recently, I wanted to expand my range of knowledge to more around like full stack development again, and also into machine learning and anything beyond that. So I wanted to pursue more complex side of the computer science. And that's when I've been in Finland for about 1.5 years now. I used to work with this company called Kentinel, which is into software testing automation. But very recently, just a couple of weeks back, I've joined Starship Technologies as a software engineer. So it's been good. It's been an interesting journey till now, and I'm really excited about whatever other challenges which are going to be coming across.
Nice. So was it so that you love product development?
Definitely.
What makes it so fun?
Well, whenever I took up most of my projects that I've previously worked on, it's mostly right from the idea of conceptualization to driving it all the way to the customer. So I think that is one big spectrum of things that I really like about product development. So because product development doesn't really involve just writing the code and making it work. There's a business aspect of it. There is the vision aspect of it. There is again, you have to think about monetization, and you have to think about best practices, maintenance in terms of business, maintenance in terms of code. So there are several aspects that you have to think about. Apart from that, there is a very important aspect, which is the user experience. And that is something a lot of people don't really pay attention to. But all of these are, various aspects of product development, which I really admire.
So what hardware do you like to use?
It depends. I try to use the right one for the right job. I have been using a MacBook Pro for quite a long time, pretty much the entire range, ever since 2009. But there are times when I do fall back to a Raspberry Pi when I want like a really small computer somewhere stashed away. I sometimes use really cheap ones, which is like maybe an old Dell laptop running Ubuntu. But at home, I'd like to use a Windows PC, which is very well souped up with like tons of memory and faster storage and overclocked and all of that.
Yeah, so you do both. How about what sort of software?
Um, Well, in terms of software, Mac OS has been a very versatile operating system. And um, right now, my primary platform of operation has been Mac. But I do use Ubuntu for my server-based operations as well. And on a regular basis, something which is really important to a software engineer is a code editor. So I used to use things like Eclipse and Sublime Text, but I use Visual Studio Code now. And I worked on several frameworks, and I've worked with frameworks like Angular and frameworks like React, React Native. But with Starship Technologies, we are using Accelerator for making multi-platform mobile applications. So it's never been a constant set of tools and software for me.
Okay, yeah. So if you would have to choose your dream setup, what would you
Um, it's a really uh, difficult question to answer, but I think I will still go with a Mac because pretty much everything that I want to develop is supported on a Mac. So, although I would prefer to use a desktop, I'm not that big a fan of MacBook Pro as a laptop. But yes, I definitely need like a big monitor. So anything which is about 27 to 32 inches is something that I like.
How about what is your favorite programming language and why?
My main area of, or my main language that I use right now is JavaScript, and I would definitely choose that at the moment because it's kind of supported on pretty much every layer of the stack in software engineering right now. You can use JavaScript for the database side, the API side, the front end side, and even to make cross-platform mobile applications right now. I'm I do admire Python a lot as well. I've had about 6 years of experience in Python because it's so much English-like. But JavaScript is like the main tool that I use right now as a language.
Is there a certain language that you would like to learn or maybe have to learn?
There could be. I do have experience with C++ in the past, and I kind of drove myself away from that because I wasn't really getting too many projects to work on that. So maybe that is something that I'd like to pick up in the future. I've never been a Java guy, so I'm never going back there. But yeah, C++ is something I'll take up. Maybe C sharp as well.
Okay, yeah. So, how did you hear about Talented and how would you say your process went?
Um, well, I think I heard about Talented through one of the ads, maybe on Facebook or somewhere. I don't really remember that much. But I was at a point where I was kind of not in a rush to get a job because I knew that the next one that I wanted to get into is something that I wanted to pick really carefully. And I didn't want to get into a company which is very resource oriented, so I wanted to have that means of somebody putting me in touch with companies, and it's probably through a Facebook ad that I saw Talented. But when I signed up for Talented and I got active on the Slack channel, and the Talented agents representatives got back to me. That's how I started realizing like there is quite a huge software market here, and it's just that people are not exploring very actively, and also because there are plenty of software engineers who are not getting discovered. So that's how I kind of found Talented and found it really useful.
So, when you came to Talented, what were the features that you were looking in your new job? Was there certain specifics or?
Some of the criteria that I had about the next job that I wanted to take up is I wanted a company which has a really solid vision in terms of doing something new. I didn't want to get into something which does the same thing which maybe another 20 companies are also doing. I wanted something which is a lot more innovative. And I wanted something where I could challenge myself as a person because I do have a certain set of skills with me right now, but I wanted to probably serve only 50% of the role that I want to take up because that's where the rest of the void makes you work harder, and that's how you get a bigger spectrum of knowledge. And learning is something which was a really big part of my criteria. I wanted to take up a job which helps me learn and pushes me to learn, and a little more aggressive culture in terms of the innovation. So these have been the main criterias.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about the company you're working at now.
I work with Starship Technologies, and Starship Technologies is one company which is solving something which might seem very small, but it's actually a very big problem, which is the last mile delivery problem. There are plenty of companies which take care of the entire shipment from point A to point B, but the last mile delivery problem is something that's always been like a really bothersome, and it's a really big challenge. The reason I really got interested in it because it actually comes from a problem that I face on a day-to-day basis. Um, I personally don't have a car right now, and there are several times when I wanted to go grocery shopping, and I like takeaway food, and there are in Tampere it's not that much of a problem. That the delivery charges are comparatively okay, maybe like 4 to 5 euros, but cities like Helsinki it's a lot more tougher to get affordable deliveries. Most of my orders are like 6 or 7 euros, and then I end up paying like 6 7 euros more for the delivery, and I wanted to like have some kind of an efficient system which solve this problem for me. And when I started looking up Starship, it seemed like something that could completely revolutionize the entire thing. The whole fact that Starship makes robots which are like majorly autonomous. Right now, they're about 98 to 99% autonomous, which means you put in the goods and then they have instructions or rather location coordinates of where they should be going, and they completely understand their environment and they go there almost autonomously. There are times when the robots do ask for help from an operator, but most of the journey is majorly autonomous. And all of this is done by a great deal of learning in terms of machine learning about understanding the surroundings and about how people behave in general. And I think looking at my personal experience with the robots, they have definitely achieved a huge milestone in terms of making these so autonomous. So I wanted to be a part of this because I very recently started learning machine learning, and when I started looking at how they perceive, the robots perceive their environment, everything that I was studying personally kind of started making sense about, it's what the robot sees through several cameras, but how does it interpret it? How does it distinguish maybe a moving car from a stationary one, from, sidewalks to a street, and how it's find its way around? And I thought, okay, if I join a company which has already excelled or achieved so many milestones into a realm of knowledge that I'm seeking, that's probably the right direction for me, because there will be a lot of help on the way. These people have already solved a lot of the problems, but that's a lot of learning for me as well, personally.
So, would you say the job at Starship has matched your expectations?
I think it's actually exceeded expectations till now. It's been a couple of weeks that I've been with Starship, and I'm trying to get a hold of the entire ecosystem that they work with. Uh, when I compare it to the way I was working previously, uh, this is kind of overwhelming for me at the moment, and I'm kind of amazed to what heights these people have already gone, about how everybody in the company knows so much about the product, believes so much in the vision of the company, that it's really promising. And so definitely it's exceeded any of the expectations that I've had. It's a little, it makes me a little nervous sometimes, because there's so much that I don't know about how they do things. But that's also a good thing that I don't know those things.
Yeah. So, how would you describe Starship to someone who's interested in the company as a workplace?
As a workplace, um, well, in Starship, I don't think any job is limited to a particular role that you are seeking. Most of the people, at least in the software engineering side, they don't have any designated role as like somebody who's a back-end engineer or a front-end engineer or somebody working only on the server operations. Everybody has a very solid grasp of things that they do, and they are open to handling any part of the software stack. So it's just about constructively and collaboratively working towards one problem, and not really restricting yourself to one part of software engineering only. So I think it helps you grow as a software engineer in a very complete fashion, something which a lot of companies do not promote. So I think it's a very healthy environment and very challenging environment, and I think that's the right way that software engineering should be done as well.
So, is there something in particular they're doing really well?
I think at every point of the product development at Starship, the primary focus has always been user experience and customer satisfaction. That is something that I haven't really seen being studied by a lot of companies that as extensively as it should have been. But Starship does pay a lot of attention to that. We had a recent launch in Milton Keynes, and the response from people, although it has been like a very small one, small launch, but the response has from people has been that it's been a great experience in terms of how the robots go and deliver things, and how it's so personalized, and overall people are really happy to see these cute robots just driving around, and getting people stuff in time. Sometimes they do take a little longer, but that's for logistics reasons. Uh, but yes, I mean, they do pay a lot of attention to the final goal for a customer.
So, how about the working culture? How would you describe that?
Well, at least from my couple of weeks in Starship, I haven't really worked with too many people there, but at least with the few people that I've worked with, they've been really trying hard to get me on board as soon as possible, being really helpful to me. And let's see, I actually work with like very closely with about 3 to 4 people, and it's never been much about let's set up a meeting and do stuff. It's about, you have a problem, you raise your hand, let's get you the answers, and like clear out the path for what clear out any questions that you have. It just like uh, makes a newcomer really comfortable. I've been in several teams in the past, and not many people put that much effort. I think this is really good because everybody is trying to make me really comfortable explaining about business, explaining about the tech stack, and it just I don't have to think twice before asking for answers. So I've been pretty comfortable till now.
So, how about your process with Talented? How would you say, how do you think we did?
I think the follow up by most of the people at Talented has been really great. I think it's been very timely, which is something that I really appreciate. Having somebody on Slack is actually a very big plus point, because I'm on Slack almost like about 15 to 16 hours a day. And I really didn't have to wait for anything more than a few hours to get answers to any of my questions. And I think whenever I applied for any company through Talented, the meetings were set up very promptly. People were getting back to me about whatever is the feedback, and with opportunities one after the other. And I like the fact that I had so much time to do my research and then apply for the companies. And most of the options that were presented were themselves very well researched by Talented. So I didn't really have to do a lot of the scrubbing myself. Pretty much every option that was thrown at me was something that I was really interested in. So it was just choosing about, you know, the best from the really good set of options I had. Um, as far as the amount of time taken to find my job at Starship, it wasn't really that long at all. In fact, I feel that I took a lot more time to get back to people because I had my own concerns in terms of my private assignments. So I really didn't follow up that early, but that was something like an expectations that I already set with Talented, and I think Talented did a really good job at uh, communicating those with the prospective employers as well.
So, what do you generally think of recruiting companies?
Um, there are two facets to recruiting companies. They're the ones who have this whole list of resumes and just start throwing you stuff that you might not even be relevant to you. I mean, I do get a lot of emails from several companies because I'm signed up on LinkedIn and I used to be signed up on Monster. And most of the times it's just been they look at your profile and they probably look at just one or two things that might be relevant, and they just send out these mass applications, and which doesn't really work because that's not something which kind of defines my profile. My profile is a whole lot of a combination of things and which have a certain recipe about my aspirations. These guys just look at something like, okay, he knows JavaScript and he knows HTML, and they just give me suggestions of a web developer, and that's not the direction I want to get into. So I think there are those kind of companies, and there are companies like Talented. The reason I actually admire Talented a lot is because they kind of matched my profile in terms of what I was aspiring for, and pretty much every option that I was presented had like an 80% match or more about where I wanted to take my career. So it just makes my job very easy.
What pops in your head when you think of Talented as a company?
Well, the first time I actually, I think I talked to Demo when I started conversing with somebody from Talented. And the biggest resistance factor with most of software engineers is most of them are not discoverable. I think Talented makes this part of the process really easy. It's like you sign up and there are a bunch of people who are going to do those things for you. So I think making this whole system very efficient is something that Talented has solved. And Finland's job market is a little different. I mean, different companies function in different fashions, but at least in Finland, it's a little difficult to, approach recruiters on LinkedIn, and there might be several people who might be writing in. So most of the companies don't have dedicated people who would scour through all of the resumes that they get, and a personal contact with someone who some the company kind of relies on or trusts in is something that most of Finnish companies look for. And I think this is the bridge that Talent has solved. And I think that is like the USP for Talented.
So, how would you describe Talented to a friend who is looking for new challenges?
Well, I've already described it to a couple of friends of mine who were looking for jobs. So I think it's as simple as you sign up and you describe what you are and you describe what you want from your job, and Talented does the rest of the puts the rest of the pieces of the puzzle for you. So it's as simple as that.